Welcome to Buying Sandlot. I'm Kyle Pagan along with Kyle Scott. We got a solid episode for you today. We have a great interview with the founder of Middle School Matchup, Dan Himel, later on in the show. But before we get into the show, if you listen to the show, you know what's coming next. Tickets are for our Buying Sandlot Summit in Philadelphia on April 14th and 15th are available. Get those over at buyingsandlot.com or the link in this show's description because we've got an amazing set of speakers you won't want to miss. Check out the newsletter as we'll be announcing more every week as we get closer to the event at Ballers. And actually, we just announced some today, Kyle.
Yes, we got another wave of speakers. I was really struggling of like how do we roll these out? I wanted to do one a day, which we've pretty much done since we announced the event back in December. But then I realized we're going to have more speakers than newsletters. And at some point, you got to show everybody everything. So we're like just, sort of spurting them out here. So we got our first group of speakers. And then today we announced 4 more. I would say this group is headlined by Rob Ponger, CEO of Perfect Game, also a Buying Sandlot podcast previous guest. I don't think Perfect Game needs much of an introduction, but have people like Rob come to our first event, really feels good. So Rob will be there from Perfect Game. I will have Adam. I got to check on the pronunciation of his name. Adam Gutierrez. Gutierrez. Yeah, I can't roll my R's
French.
like that. Double T, double R. I will correct this before we get to the event. He's the SVP of Media at Huddle, which again, platform that needs no introduction, but they count over 100 million fans and eyeballs that access their platform. Actually, probably 200 million eyeballs since most people have 2 eyes. And he oversees media and sponsorship. So we've talked a lot about the sponsor opportunity. Very few people on planet Earth better positioned to talk about sponsorship in youth and amateur sports than Adam G. We also have Mike Rowley, CEO of Go Route, also a Buying Sandlot podcast previous guest. They make wearable Apple Watch looking devices for baseball, softball, and football for coach to player communication. So each position on the field can get their assignment directly to the wrist. And it opens up tons of data opportunities because you can now see not only the result of a pitch or a play call in football, you can see what the input and what it was supposed to be. And the data potential for that, for learning, the Moneyball aspect of this could be really interesting. Mike said at the Jefferies conference, they're on a 10 million annual recurring revenue run rate, and they want to grow to 50. I'm always just sort of dumbfounded by how big some companies that, you sort of learn about as you go about here, and people are sitting on 8-figure businesses all over the place. Mike is one of those. And we'll also have Ryan Kaplan. He's the co-founder On the Radar. We talked to his partner, Frank DiSimbrino from Clubhouse Partners. They're very closely aligned. And we're going to get into that topic in a bit. But On the Radar is let me get the wording right here, revolutionizes the college recruitment process with the world's first AI-driven platform designed specifically for student athletes, their families, advisors, and coaches. We talked about this with Frank. It's a platform so baseball players can learn from their peers who've gone to other colleges and then stack up their stats and build their recruiting profile. So Ryan, really like what they're building, and perfect person for our NIL and data panel at the event.
You might
so
see
more, and lots more good ones coming soon. Some big name brands that if you don't see them on the event site and they haven't been announced yet, just know the handful of large brand names and companies that are not on the website yet are most likely coming.
You might see me on the radar for a profile very shortly. A little tease there for everybody involved.
Looking forward to it. Spoiler, lacks quick twitch.
That's all right. You got to have negatives to have good positives, all right?
It's got size. You got size.
There you go. How do you like my new background? If anybody's, I know we got a lot of audio listeners, but if you are on the YouTube and you're regular on the YouTube, you might notice a little something different behind me.
I know you're going to edit this. When you edit this, make sure this specific moment we are side by side because this is unbelievable. Our shelves match up dead evenly
yes.
on the side by side angle. So whatever height your camera is at, you cannot move it. We are just. I'm not going to make it.
There's no chance. There's no chance my wife is going to let me keep all this rigmarole. I think we have someone staying over this weekend, so unfortunately.
You just moved the camera. You just screwed it up.
I just kicked it by accident. I'm tall. I'm big.
Right there you go. Put a little pencil mark on the wall so these shelves are lined up. That is just flawless.
All
Good
right.
shelf game. Great shelf game at Buying Sandlot.
Thank you. Yeah,
we may need to do
exactly.
shelves at the conference on the backdrop. We may need it to feel like a Buying Sandlot podcast behind the stage. That would just see if our event planner can pull that off.
We should just take a picture of our backgrounds. It would be perfect. They can
It's
make
like a big Zoom screen.
Yeah, they can make
We're going to have a screen. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I like. All right. See this?
All right.
Building the plane in midair. Let's get to it.
100%. We'll get into the middle school matchup in a second, but we wanted to play you a clip and then talk about it a little bit about what middle school matchup is.
Middle school matchup is something totally different out there in the baseball scene. So that's filled with select clubs, recreational leagues, but there's really never that chance. Typically across America, there's really never that chance to play for your middle school. Middle school have sports programs, football, volleyball, basketball, track, soccer, sometimes nothing, but usually they have something, but very rarely do they have baseball programs for their middle school. Typically it's a money issue, single use fields, things like that. 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I had the idea of like, hey, I'm a pretty decent marketer. Let's get these kids joined by what middle school they go to. We'll put their middle school name on their shirt and they'll fight their cross-team rivals. And from there, it just kind of went viral. When it started off, I had a kid that played single sport baseball, was not on any of the school teams. I really just wanted I wanted to see if they could beat the team across the way. That's all it really started off as. And now it's just grown into something that I would have never believed has happened. And so we're up to about 50,000 players now. And we're now franchising systems from coast to coast. Any weekend we have tournaments going on. So you don't leave your middle school team. You don't leave your baseball team. It's just a quick break to have like a lot of fun. It's very Sandlot baseball. The kids are playing with kids they grew up with. The moms are sitting in the stands, hanging out with the ladies from their neighborhood. It's just this crazy new experience that who knows? I just discovered by accident, but it's definitely working.
All right, Kyle, what do you think about that?
So I love this, right? We've talked a lot about professionalized rec, and it seems like he is splitting the uprights between recreation, scholastic, and travel. And it's jumping on a few trends, one of which is kids that aren't maybe at the elite or the travel or super competitive level begin to fall off in certain sports as they approach their teenage years. And baseball is one of the biggest sports because the field increases from 45, 48 feet, 60 feet bases, whatever it is, 70 feet bases, up to 90, the full MLB field. And a lot of kids at age 12, some kids are able to make that throw from shortstop and third, other kids have no shot. And then that's where the fun aspect kind of goes back a couple of years. And lots of kids just decide, their days of playing baseball are over if they're not super competitive. So love this idea behind taking kids from a town, forming a middle school team, and then going off and playing in tournaments. So yeah, I'm sort of stunned by the numbers of this thing, just reading it here. 50,000 participants, 300 cities. Most markets have 2 tournaments a year, players of all ability levels. That's key. Teams assembled based on middle school district. And as a franchise, right? $30,000 franchise free plus royalty. Average fee for the family is $150. There's one spot in Houston where they have 6,000 kids playing. So if you just do the math, 6,000 kids, $150 per kid, it's $900,000 for this in revenue for this single franchisee organizing 2 baseball tournaments a year. Maybe there's something behind it that we're missing in terms of costs, but they says here, like most of our costs are just field rental and umpires. That feels like it throws off a lot of profit for somebody.
Yeah, he called it a part-time job, but it's not passive income.
That's amazing. It really is. So, there's just a number of takes here. James had a couple of good ones. Like one of our predictions was organized pickup sports. Mm-hmm. This is a little bit beyond pickup, but I think it touches on the same thing. It's like, hey, we don't need the commitment of a club or a team over months and months and months with training. Let's come together a few times, have a good, fun, safe experience, which we always talk about. And there's a business behind that. This guy's walking it. I'm shocked as to how big this is. Yeah. There's still a desire to play no frills, traditional play when done right. I would say there's a little bit of frills here because it's a tournament, but same idea, turning a strong profit. I added to this. I've been toying with the idea of, we're in the same boat. My kids aren't middle school age yet, but it's the same idea here, which is I don't know if we're ready to make the travel baseball commitment yet, right? It cuts into beach and vacation time. June, July, and in our area, parts of August are just nuked with the number of tournaments. It starts in November, indoor, goes through the winter. You have to play rec. Part of the, I think it's the Ripken League rules, is that you have to play on the rec league to be eligible for that township's travel team, at least in our area. So now you got to play rec plus travel into August. And then a lot of the kids, almost all of them, roll over into fall ball. And then tryouts are in November and December. There is no time off. So I've been thinking about, hey, what if we could pull together 10, 12, 15 dads or families or players who feel the same way in a 30-minute driving radius? We have the network here and the connections to maybe get this sponsored and they go enter a couple of tournaments with a decent team, but like not necessarily just built to be a powerhouse, and have some fun for 2 to 3 weekends a year, subsidized by sponsorship, by the way. Maybe this is a way to test all those sponsorship conversations we had. Maybe we could just test it ourselves. Like, hey, can we get a club team that plays in 3 tournaments sponsored? DM us if you're out there. Email us, Kyle@BuyingSandlot, right? But like, I've been thinking about this, and then here's dad who saw the same thing. Hey, my middle school kid doesn't play anymore. Let's create a tournament so him and all his buddies can play. And now you got a business in aggregate doing millions and millions of dollars in revenue with 50,000 kids participating. Crazy stuff.
It's great. It is. It's absolutely crazy. And it was so fun to talk to Dan about it, because where I grew up, we all had middle school sports. We had it from baseball to football to everything in between. And I didn't know how much that wasn't out there in other parts of the country. I just thought middle school sports was like playing high school sports, was like playing youth sports. But it was so cool to talk to Dan and see him kind of figure out a market, in frequency, and then just go and make sure that, one, kids are having fun, and then two, it's a viable option to make money if you're a family out there and you want to get out of the rat race and you want to, buy a franchise. It doesn't seem like there's that much barrier to entry. I mean, I was shocked that it's only $30,000.
Yeah, and I imagine I'd be interested to know how consistent the quality, is between these. So go ahead.
He claims that there are legit Texas travel teams, and Texas baseball is very good, that they will take off for 2 weeks out of the year, and they will contact him and be like, hey, this is when we are taking off. Can you schedule the tournament that weekend? Because they are so gung-ho about playing. And he does mention this in the interview. I don't want to spoil all the interview. He says that they think that he says that they know that whoever wins middle school matchup, the tournament, will go on to win a state title in 4, 5, 6 years.
Interesting. I love this. I mean, this is actually another, by the way, it's kind of like, the whole Premier League soccer shuts down so they could play friendlies or do international play. It's the same idea, right? Certain golf tournaments take off. There's lots of examples of this. But this to me is another trend where it is sort of for a long time, the focus has been on clubs, at all levels, clubs and travel teams. And I would almost call this like the parent-led pushback on that, where there's enough demand and interest in what he's doing with middle school matchup that the local club and travel league teams and travel league have to be like, all right, well, we're gonna pause to let this thing happen because enough parents are asking us because their kid wants to participate in this. I would actually tie an analogy here to the data piece. I think if there's an app or program or tool or platform or tool that becomes popular enough with parents, that it will become table stakes for some of the larger platforms to have to integrate with that, if that makes sense. So take, for example, I keep going back to these banking apps, right? But I use this one app. It aggregates like your accounts and your bills, right? Well, let's say you have Citibank and Citibank didn't play with that. Well, that app becomes popular enough. People who are Citibank customers are going to say, hey, I use the such and such budget app. It's number one in the app store, and I'm trying to sync my bank account with it through Plaid, but like your bank doesn't work. They get enough requests for that. They're going to be like, fine, like we got to integrate with this app. That's happened in travel. It's happened in finance, some other areas too. In youth sports, if that happens on the tech side, or in this case happens on the league participation side, you need the travel and club industry is like, fine, we got to placate it now, right? We got to take a weekend off in May to allow this tournament to happen. So I do think, it's positive for families and kids if they're beginning to maybe take control of the way they want to play or how they want to play or who they want to play with without all the kind of competitive demands. And at the same time, and we've been saying this, that's a good business opportunity. It's not just about like, rah, rah, this is good for the kids. Like that's part of it. But it's like, we're a business publication here. It's good business. Mm-hmm. It can be good business when done right. Mm-hmm. So that I love this idea. Love it a lot. Would love to. I've heard other examples and I'd love to get them on. We talked to the guy from about pickup play. I've heard of an example locally here in Philly. Dad was fed up with something, opened a small facility. He's like, screw it, I'm going to start my own club. Now he's got like 50 teams playing out of his facility. Nice. So I'd like to get him on, but like this is happening where certain parents who have maybe a little bit of time and money are fed up with something. They're like, we're going to do it this way. And people just follow. They're like the Pied Piper of their town. And it's, I think it's happening everywhere.
Yeah, it taps into so much. I mean, it's affordable, it's a good idea, and it's also just like I use this example in the interview. It's Little Giants. It's the movie Little Giants. You're playing the Cowboys. Who didn't love growing up and playing the Turkey Bowl against I was at Catholic school. We used to play the rival high school, the public school, and it was just like everybody would come. It didn't matter if you graduated in 1960, or you graduated in 2015. Like you were at the Turkey Bowl because everybody wants to play that town next over and stuff. So yeah, this is a no-brainer idea. And I think there is a club in South Jersey, which is right by us. So we might have to check that out sometime. Anything else on before we get in the interview?
No, I'm just we'll get to the interview, but I love this quote. Kids are playing with kids they grew up with. Moms are in the stands hanging out with ladies from the neighborhood. It's this crazy new experience that was discovered by accident, but it's definitely working. So you have someone who's like, I wish things were this way. They start doing it, and then everyone follows. We've heard that with the pickup club in North Jersey, New York area. Same deal. He's like, we just started this, and like we can't. The Facebook demand from parents to be involved with this is through the roof. Yeah. So camps are lucrative, but it's not always about camps. It's like, hey, can the kids just go somewhere for 2 hours and have fun? We'll pay for it. There's a business there.
Yeah. So let's get into the interview with Daniel Himel, founder of Middle School Matchup, over 17,000 players, 237 schools in 97 cities. You've brought Middle School Matchup to. Thanks for joining the program.
Oh, thank you. It's actually like 50,000 players now. I guess that's pretty old, but 50,000 players, like 300 cities. But yeah, we've grown.
My bad. Just grabbed that one off the website. But well, can you give us a little elevator pitch about the company?
Yeah, Middle School Matchup is something totally different out there in the baseball scene. So that's filled with select clubs, recreational leagues, but there's really never that chance. Typically across America, there's really never that chance to play for your middle school. Middle school have sports programs, football, volleyball, basketball, track, soccer, sometimes nothing, but usually they have something. But very rarely do they have baseball programs for their middle school. Typically it's a money issue, single-use fields, things like that. 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I had the idea of like, hey, I'm a pretty decent marketer. Let's get these kids joined by what middle school they go to. We'll put their middle school name on their shirt and they'll fight their cross-team rivals. And from there, it just kind of went viral. When it started off, I had a kid that played single sport baseball, was not on any of the school teams. I really just wanted I wanted to see if they could beat the team across the way. That's all it really started off as. And now it's just grown into something that I would have never believed has happened. And so we're up to about 50,000 players now. And we're now franchising systems from coast to coast. Any weekend we have tournaments going on. So you don't leave your middle school team. You don't leave your baseball team. It's just a quick break to have like a lot of fun. It's very Sandlot baseball. The kids are playing with kids they grew up with. The moms are sitting in the stands, hanging out with the ladies from their neighborhood. It's just this crazy new experience that who knows? It just discovered by accident, but it's definitely working.
So Dan, it's when I came across Middle School Matchup, I'm 36. Our middle school had a baseball team, and most of the I grew up in New Jersey, had a team. So it did not dawn on me that this was an issue, but then I kind of dug into it. Do you have any figures or about how many middle school baseball teams there are potentially in the country, or trends? Because there's nothing really out there, but it seems like it is more often no team than a team.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, but there's just pockets, and it's even just pockets up there. Like there's some in New Jersey, but not all of New Jersey is that way. We actually have a South New Jersey franchise that's going. Arizona has a lot of middle school baseball, and then from there on, it's just kind of pockets. This one city may have it just at 4 schools. This one city may have it 2, but generally, there's no middle school baseball in middle schools. And in some places, there's no middle school sports at all. But generally, typically no middle school baseball teams.
So I'll call it a middle school baseball desert for anything.
Right.
When you, in terms of starting a franchise, if it was an area where maybe 2 middle schools have it, but the other 8 don't, would you guys still move into that area, or are you looking for areas where there is nothing?
It's better where there's nothing, but we do have we have somebody in South Florida, one of their counties in their territory does have middle school baseball. Those teams still play. What happens though, the phenomenon because of travel ball or select ball or whatever you call it, typically these middle schools that do have baseball, it's a very shortened season. It's maybe like 5 games and very intramural level. Some of the kids that are higher level still don't get to play on those middle school teams because they have select team commitments and things like that. When we flipped it and just said, hey, all you're committing to is a weekend here to have fun with your friends, this is where it pulls out everybody typically.
How do you schedule? Because I know obviously you pick a couple of days out of the season, out of the year, but I just imagine like every time we talk about it, it's like kids have no time. Like they're practicing during the week, they're playing on the weekends. Do you guys have like a kind of a set schedule? Is that just like that's just market research? You guys all know about what certain areas, have that kind of season?
Yeah. So we advise, like we try to get at the beginning or the end of the season, but at the end of the day, some of these areas it's year round and you're just competing for time. Once we're integrated into the culture of that thing, people start, we call it middle school matchup weekend. Select teams are shutting down because they know their players are going to play in this. So, but at first getting that initial traction, we were competing against, the rest of the baseball world until we can get enough of that fandom to just give us the priority. But that is a challenge for sure.
And then how are you like conscious that players are going to be available and like competitive, so it's worth everyone's time? Obviously, you just mentioned the select team shutting down, which is crazy to me, and I guess that's kind of going back to the Sandlot days, or going, more my speed was Little Giants when the Giants versus the Cowboys were playing back in that Disney movie back in the day. These select teams are really shutting down for this weekend.
Yeah, most of the coaches see the value. Most of the coaches see the value in it, and a lot of a lot of select teams it's coached by a dad, and the dad still wants that experience for his son. So the majority of them, once they get it and they realize that we're not anti-select ball or anything like that. Once they realize what we're trying to do, they'll get behind us, and a lot of them reach out. Hey, we're planning our schedule. When is middle school matchup this weekend? So we get a lot of that, and then behind the scenes. Select coaches go out there and they use it as a recruiting tool because they are seeing new players in their area that they haven't seen before. So there's a lot of there's a benefit to them too. They're at the dugouts handing out numbers as well.
Dan, let's say I'm interested in starting a franchise. What are kind of the first steps? I mean, I guess what's the kind of average cost for a franchise, and what do you kind of look for in terms of? Obviously, you want an area where there's not a lot of middle school teams, but it's also an area where there are complexes or field access. How does all that work?
Yeah, we want you. At least we're starting off right now in the bigger markets where you have enough, people to pull from. So we're looking at more of the larger metroplexes. Although we do have a very small city in West Texas that's doing quite well. What we've found is this isn't the type of franchise that if somebody's in the market for franchises, they're not saying, hey, should I buy a Subway or should I buy a middle school matchup? We're totally different. These are people that usually just want to get out of the rat race 9 to 5. They love youth sports. Typically, they will have a player in baseball or in youth sports. They'll be connected to the community in some way so that as soon as they are a business owner, they could turn around and use their trust and their reputation and say, I've got this cool thing. And they could probably recruit 30 or 40, 50 players with a group chat that weekend if they want. Those are the type of moms and dads that are buying these, and the ones that have the quickest success. We used to, entertain people that were using it more as a normal franchise. And I like the idea. You really need to be connected to your sports community in your local area. And then you just talk to our team. We vet you, you vet us, you sign the deal, and then we get you going and support you through your first event. That's the biggest one to kind of get your feet wet. And then the beauty of the business itself is it's twice a year. It is a part-time job. That doesn't mean it's passive. We have had that experience where people like, oh, I thought just people were going to show up because I bought it. It is part-time, but it's not passive. And then the beauty of it is you grow. Your first tournament, you're going to have 200 kids, and it's a pretty easy tournament for us to put on. And then, next tournament, you may have 300, 400 kids, and you're starting to kind of grow. So as your threshold grows, you're starting to learn the system more and more and how to do it. Behind the scenes, we're actually a pretty medium-sized apparel business because we have to put these kids in uniforms. So every year we're distributing probably about 70,000 pieces of gear to these players. So that's a whole little hidden part behind the business.
And I would assume that given it's only twice a year, kind of the bar to entry, I'm sure, is a lot more manageable. We see a lot of these, like youth soccer, facilities pop up, and, it'll be like $1 million out of the gate to get you going. I assume we're not talking about that.
Oh, not even close. We're fully remote. You could run the whole thing. You can get as big as our biggest franchise, which is in Houston, Texas. They have about 6,000 players per year. Our average per player is about $150 per player. You could do the math. It's a lot. He runs that by himself. Tournament weekends, you have umpires and you got to hire some help. It's a very low entry fee of $30K to get in. And then we have the standard royalty, just like any other franchise system. So there's no overhead, there's no inventory, there's not a starter kit you need to buy. It's just, you need to get ready to start, recruiting in your neighborhoods and start getting on the group chats and getting your first few teams kind of amped up, and then just hope you will catch kind of this viral feeling at these tournaments that you don't get every place else. That's how it all started. The first event was like, this is going to be really cool. I want my kids' team to beat that other team. When we got there, just you guys have probably been to thousands of tournaments, maybe. The energy just felt different because the kids were just having an absolute blast. The parents were having a blast. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, but it just felt way, way, way different. And we knew we were onto something. I just didn't know what it would turn out to. So we just kind of coach you up through that first tournament. And then we support you for all tournaments, but getting that first tournament on the field as soon as possible and allowing people to feel this hashtag happy baseball, we call it, is our number one concern.
I know you said it's twice a year, and maybe the natural ebbs and flows of youth baseball just kind of take care of this problem. Do you have people who are like, hey, why can't we do this a third time? I guess if they're having this great experience, do you find it, especially like in the summer, the natural thing becomes, well, why don't we switch up the pods and do it again in 3 weeks? And do you, as a kind of big picture, say no, the secret sauce is the fact that we do this twice a year?
Yeah, we get emails from parents all the time asking us, hey, why don't you just form a league and do this? We would love that. The reason why that probably won't work is the players that are more on the recreational side that are playing in your city leagues, they would love that. But if you're trying to elevate your game, you need to go. If you're a catcher, you need to go. They're going to go on a select team that has a catcher's spot. So for the higher level players, it just wouldn't make sense. It would distill it down to just another recreational league, and then it doesn't leave enough players. And there's something really cool about reserving 2 weekends a year to put all the politics, to put all the pressure aside and just go do it. Now, the franchisees, some of them will start off with more than one event, more than 2 events per year to kind of just keep momentum going up and then condense into 2 units. That way they can kind of because what happens is they'll throw their first tournament, and then people immediately come after that saying, "Hey, I just heard about that." The kids come back to school with their rings and their jerseys, and they're like, "We had no idea. When's the next one?" And it's really hard to tell them, "Well, wait till next year." So now they're starting to experiment, like, "Hey, what if we did a couple tournaments with 150, and then kind of condensed?" So it's an interesting dynamic, and we get that question a lot.
What did you think of the recent announcement from the Savannah Bananas that they were getting into youth baseball? I know we don't really know the model right now, but they did offer a youth tournament last year. Just looking to see if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I love it. They're going to be not necessarily a competitor of ours, because they're going to build like kind of Sandlot teams. But behind the scenes, our business, we always say, "Hey, we're the banana. Like we got to go in banana mode because we're fun." Like some of the kids wear cowboy hats, and it's just that when the coaches dress up like Grinches, and it's just fun, right? And that's the same thing that the banana ball is going to go after. They have endless amounts of capital and stuff like that, so they're going to just grow incredible. But the idea of just floating the idea out there that, remember, baseball is supposed to be pretty fun, is going to help everybody. So I like it. I kind of want to sit and watch because they're going to run through some of the same challenges we do, but I love it, and it's just going to help everything. And behind the scenes, what we really stand for is happy baseball, and that's exactly what they're going to create as well. So it's a win for everybody.
What are some of those challenges, if you don't mind me asking, that you think they're going to experience?
Yeah, so most tournaments, if you have 20, which is considered a pretty large tournament now, if you have 20 teams, you're dealing with 20 coaches, right? They bring their players. So you're 20 teams, 20 coaches. We have players register individually. So when we have 20 teams, and we typically have like 200 teams in our larger tournaments, now you're dealing with 4,000 parents, and now we're dealing with probably about 8,000 pieces of gear. So the customer service strain is sometimes it feels impossible, and baseball moms are different. I guess any sport mom is different. So we attract, part of the good of this stuff, of all the moms saying this is the greatest thing ever. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We get those other people, and it becomes a big downer sometimes. So you're fighting an uphill balance, and the expectations are just so high on some parents, and they just want it run a certain way. So they're going to have to deal with that, and the logistics of finding the fields that are open while select baseball is played pretty much year round, and all that things. They will figure it out for sure. They have a massive amount of capital and manpower, but it's going to be interesting. I want to watch them, see how they do it.
Dan, so one of the big trends we're kind of following in the whole industry is when these single sport platforms that have got their think everything down to a science, they're very successful, they provide a great product, they're starting to expand into other sports. I know on the site I saw that you guys, there's some middle school matchup offerings in other sports. I think there's bowling in Ohio, which I'd love to know the backstory to that. And I also saw that in Texas, a couple markets, there's sort of freshman sports opportunities. So I guess a two-parter. Do you look at yourself solely as a baseball platform, and there's some unique cases, or do you kind of plan to scale and expand in other sports? And two, I know Texas is a totally different animal, in terms of the commitment level and the competition level from freshman football and sports on up. Do you think long term you want to potentially be in that space? Maybe not like for JV kids or varsity kids, but for freshman players who might not be able to play at a high school level, but they still want to compete.
Right. So that's a great question. So we are expanding into some other sports. It just doesn't have the same traction. It doesn't have the same happy baseball field. The most successful one is 7v7 football. It seems to be picking up some steam. We're starting to get some girl teams wanting, there's a big push for girls flag football. So that seems like it could have some success, but we're going to be grounded in baseball. The freshman thing is interesting in that what we do is at the very beginning, right when they graduate 8th grade and they're heading into being a freshman, the freshman coaches are not allowed to coach they're hands off from those players. But a lot of the schools with the better programs have these prep teams that play during that summer. But there's rules in place that the high school cannot really have anything to do with it. Wink, wink. But usually it's a dad of the booster program and things like that. Their biggest challenge is finding the players. Like, hey, who is going to be trying out for our teams, since they can't really communicate that very well. What we've done is kind of served up that team on a silver platter and said, hey, we're now instead of combining by middle school, we're taking these players that still want to compete and combining them by high school, let them compete for that weekend or that 3-day weekend. And now you have your prep team ready to go for the rest of the summer, including uniforms. So that's working out really great. One of the cool things about that, and I always get a little choked up when I talk about this, is we got an email from a parent saying my kid has zero chance of making the high school baseball team, but just the chance to play with the high school baseball team once was amazing. So so interesting things. Some of the high school coaches at first did not get on the program. Even with middle school matchup, they didn't get it. Now we have high school coaches coaching some of the middle school teams. That's a legal move, at least in Texas. But as soon as they're in that freshman summer, they can't touch them. But so we've had a big shift from like, what is this going on, to like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. So we've got some big support, and that helps. It's one more event, and it helps the kids. It helps the franchisees have one more event, and it's kind of just like kind of their send off party. So they get to wear the high school jersey. Some of the coaches get a little bit butthurt because they're wearing the name of the school, and some of these kids are never going to make the team, so they get a little bit weird that way. But most of them understand.
All right, that was the interview with Dan. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. We hope everybody has a good weekend, and we will see you next week.